Hi, I'm Zoe Howard. I am a lab manager in the Schloss Visual Reasoning Lab here at WID, where we study visual perception. A lot of the work I do in the lab focuses on visual textures and how we can use them to represent concepts in data visualizations. Our lab is studying how people use associations between visual features, for example, colors and textures, and different concepts to interpret meanings in information visualizations. So that means like graphs and maps and charts, for example. The research can be used to make visual communication in general more effective and efficient. A lot of people think that visual communication is pretty simple, but it's actually kind of a cognitively complex process. For example, if you're looking at a bar graph, you're not just seeing the colors and the textures and then maybe shapes on the graph, you're also kind of interpreting the meanings of those things while also at the same time trying to gather whatever scientific story that the designer of the data visualization is trying to tell. My favorite part of being in the Schloss Visual Reasoning Lab is kind of both the people and the creativity. I get to work with a lot of lab mates who are genuinely very curious and also very creative and supportive. And I also love how applicable the work in the lab is to daily life. So for example, when I'm out doing photography or watching the news or just gathering information using data visualizations or other formats in my daily life, I noticed kind of parts of the research questions we're interested in, and I think that kind of makes this research really fun to do. Our work in the lab connects to a lot of different kind of fields because data visualizations are used in all sorts of different fields of science and technology and media. So for example, computer scientists and data engineers and also journalists and musicians. All these people kind of use data visualizations in their work, so I think it's pretty interdisciplinary in that way. I think what cognitive psychology adds to this is an understanding of how people actually interpret the data visualizations. So one thing that makes our lab really unique, and also is something that our lab does really well, is how kind of collaborative and also supportive it is. And I think so many opportunities have grown for me when I was an undergrad and now also as a lab manager. So I learned a lot in terms of the questions I was interested in asking, but also other kind of things that are important in science. So for example, presenting and writing, kind of just communicating the science in general. Karen Schloss, who's my PI, has been one of my biggest supporters throughout this process. And that kind of mentorship is sometimes hard to come by, but it's also kind of what makes the lab and also WID in general a really fun environment to do science in.